Uh, Samoa Joe is where I was going with this. What the heck? Why would you, with the announcers that they have, and you need to get rid of Joe first? Or is this saying that they are not going to clear him to wrestle again? I know he's had concussion issues, but that guy has had a gypsy curse on him for almost 20 years. Because he should have been, 15 years ago, he should have been one of the biggest stars in the business. And it's either where he's been or how they've used him when he's been there what was the line? And that was over 10 years ago. He said, I tripped on some bad booking. That was in TNA. They fucked him up from scratch. And I never understood how that this is almost a foolproof talent, and how part of it was TNA being just a vastly secondary product at the time. And of course, to attribute most of that to the creative, and we know who that was. But they spectacularly couldn't convert their million and a half people on Spike into buying the pay-per-views at all, because that was creative's least concern. He didn't book at all. He didn't write to put cards together on pay-per-view that would draw money. He, just fucked up every segment of the show to get gawkers looking at the accident on the side of the road. But Joe and Kurt Angle broke through that to do the only pay-per-view that TNA ever did. They never gave numbers because it's a private company. They didn't have to, and they were embarrassed about them. But even people working in the, at least, wrestling end of the company weren't privy to exact numbers or figures or whatever. But Kurt Angle and Samoa Joe, that first match they had on pay-per-view, what was it September-ish, October-ish, 2009, November, or 2006 rather, November-ish, maybe? I don't remember. Point is, look it up. The first one, they did a serious build that Dutch Mantel took care of, and that's why they never got to do it again, because it was all Dutch. And they didn't fucking do Angle's every week, and they played on Angle's background and Samoa Joe's MMA style. And they did, depending on who you want to listen to, somewhere around 40 or 50,000 buys, which was by far the most successful TNA pay-per-view of all time. And but unfortunately, the, HTIC, head twat in charge, didn't know wrestling. She just knew con men. So she was allowed to believe that the rotten creative that she was being given should continue instead of business, and they never did that again. And by the time I was gone, remember that Samoa Joe, he came out one time with a goddamn fake Samoan tribal tattoo on his face. And at one of the pay-per-views that Shitstain got his way on, I think after Jeff was gone, they brought Samoan fire dancers to bring Samoa Joe to the ring for his entrance on one of the pay-per-views. And he told me he said, I've got a college education and I'm from fucking California, right? The Samoa Joe, the whole idea of the Samoa Joe gimmick and Samoa Joe and his personality was that he was an update, a modern version of the wild Samoan, in that he wasn't fucking out there eating raw fish with goddamn Lou Albano. He was a fucking college-educated, well-spoken guy that could cut good promos, but had a different physique. He was thick and big, and I know sometimes he got too big because he wasn't motivated, because they were jacking him around. But he was a badass with an MMA-influenced style, and he could smother you with his weight, and he was still a Samoan. So for the natural toughness that they both have and can project in physical situations. So and he can work. He could work with people where they didn't feel he was there unless that they asked him to lay shit in or it called for it because of the fucking angle, but he was an excellent worker. Got the fucking picture. And he's another guy that because that she was so wrapped up in hiring the WWE's over the hill gang that could come in and get paid vacation. Joe and several other guys at his level suffered for several years, and still it was also a vastly secondary promotion. But I do believe if he had been presented better in TNA, that he would have probably been taken more seriously from the start in the WWE. But I don't know. I haven't been around for any of his dealings there. I don't know what his relationship with them has been. But, I mean, at this point, with concussions, and they may be looking, I don't even remember how old Joe is, but
42.
Well, there you go. I mean, he's doing a great job as an announcer and an ex-jock and color guy, better than, most of the fucking goofballs they come up with, but they probably don't want to consider him for an in-ring run in the future, which is a shame because he's got cheated out of 15 years thanks to Shitstain and Dixie and he made good guaranteed money there for some time, but it did absolutely nothing for his career and during his prime physical years where he could have been a fucking force. You could have used the Samoa Joe of 10, 15 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago. I haven't kept a close eye. You could have used him in a Brock Lesnar spot, in a Jacob Fatu spot, in a fucking really dominant powerhouse spot, but he wouldn't have needed a heel manager or a corner man or a stable. It might have augmented, but he could speak for himself. And, and it's just a shame guys like that don't come along, every day, and nobody has had the first fucking clue what to do with him.
Actually, that's not true. And that's the issue, I think, in some ways. Every booker wants to do their own thing, but sometimes you should just copy what works. Gabe Sapolsky knew exactly what to do with Samoa Joe.
And I apologize when I just said, and I'll apologize this ahead of time for Gabe. Nobody where anybody ever saw it has had an idea what to do with him.
I agree.
Yeah, Gabe was perfect. And that doesn't mean that he could. I know a lot of people will say, well, he was so dominant in Ring of Honor at that time because all those guys were small, etc. Well, look at the fucking modern roster anywhere. But also, it was because he was put over properly. And he's a guy, he can work with anybody. Small guys, big guys, whatever. But
when did you first see him? Because it must have been eye-opening to you. It was so different. What was happening in the independent scene in the early, whatever you would say, the early 2000s, was so different than what it had been just a few years earlier. But you got exposed to, I would think, a lot of guys you had never seen before, like a CM Punk or a Samoa Joe.
Yeah, and Punk, I saw a few of his matches early. I only made sporadic dates for Gabe in the early, before, what was it, 2004, 2005, I made a few. And then in 2006, suddenly I read on the internet or somewhere that all TNA talent had been, right after I'd got with TNA, that all TNA talent was not going to be being used on Ring of Honor shows anymore. And then I had to call everybody because I'm like, well, what the fuck? And I don't mean to go off on a side tangent, and I'll get back to this in a second. Basically, my deal with TNA was that I could do anything else I wanted to do besides their television and pay-per-views. I gave them first crack at those dates, right? So I could not be withdrawn. And I was enjoying working with Gabe and Kerry. And so I called, and TNA said, no, actually, you can still do whatever you want. But then I called Gabe, and he said, well, here's the fucking thing. He said, we can't have Samoa Joe. We can't have AJ Styles. And we can have this guy, but we can still have you. Will it put heat on you? I said, that's right. The fans will probably be pissed. So we just didn't do anything for a couple of years. But to answer the original question, and how was it exactly that you phrased it again? When I first saw these guys, Joe was not as green as some, like the first time I saw the Briscoes. I got to be honest, because I think they were 18 and 20. I said, well, they were so athletic. They were puppies with big paws, but that this was straight independent style wrestling. And I was like, ugh, but then even AJ, maybe just to some extent, when I first saw him, was still a little greenish, but they did get more experience in TNA because they got a chance to work with, with a higher experience level of talent. But the thing I was going to say was they were the cream of the crop there, whereas most of Ring of Honor's guys in 2005-ish were just really indie and really young and really green. When I went away for a couple years, and then all of a sudden I went back in 2009, holy shit, the Briscoes had grown up, and so had a number of the guys that I'd seen before, but they had gotten older, and they'd gotten bigger, and they'd gotten more experience. And a lot of the class had grown up there. But yeah, that was the thing, is that Joe and AJ and those guys, and Daniels, who I'd known for forever because he was older, the independent, the main event independent guys then were not being silly with wrestling, and there was no Invisible Man, there was no dance routines, there was nothing phony. They were doing stuff that was maybe a little too fast or maybe a little too Japanese style, but they were doing it at a high level, performing it at a high level, doing the moves, and they were crisp. But the underneath guys in the mid 2000s, a lot of them were sloppy on the independents. Now, you went through a period where, like the Ring of Honor class in 2000, 9 to 11 or 12, Roderick Strong, Davey Richards, who's just coming back, the Briscoes, Jay Lethal, Eddie Edwards, guys up and down the card like that. As we talked about with Joe Koff, they on the independents, they were the best working, most credible guys that weren't signed to WWE or TNA. And, they were doing the shit at a high level. Then over the last 10 years since that, it seems like now everybody can do everything, but none of the indie guys take anything seriously anymore. So you have these Invisible Man matches and the dance routines and the invisible choke slams and the lollipops up the ass, all the things that we tweet about. And I just wonder, is that maybe why is the WWE better off having their own developmental program? Because at least they don't get people that do shit like that. They start them from scratch. Because nobody's really getting serious experience on the independents anymore. They're all fucking Saturday Night Live sketch comedy shows, aren't they?
And looking at what the independent scene is now, Samoa Joe really stands out for when he rose up on the independent scene, and he was so different than every other guy.
Well, yeah, Samoa Joe for these independents now, and the high school cheerleaders that Uncle Dave loves, Samoa Joe would come in like Brock Lesnar. So, everybody thinks that I always hate the young guys, the modern talent. No, I was a big proponent of Joe's. I used to fucking tear my hair out in the truck when I would drive Dutch Mantell, because I'd drive to the tapings, right? So I'd have my truck. Me and Dutch would go to the studio in Orlando every day and back to the hotel, and I'd be tearing my fucking hair out of my head at whatever they'd done to Samoa Joe or whatever they'd done to Bobby Roode. Or what? There's another one. Bobby Roode 15 years ago was Arn Anderson on independent shows. Find me one of those. So anyway, I feel bad for Joe in that they let him go. If they don't want to use him as a wrestler going forward, and if he's had that much issue with concussions, maybe he shouldn't be. But he was certainly doing at least as good a job as the rest of his competition there as an announcer, and he's well-spoken, and he gives some credibility to the fucking thing. Could he not be a coach in some way at the Performance Center to teach some of these fucking knuckleheads something?
You would think.
So I didn't get that one at all. I really did not. But you know what? You know what he will do, though? He will sleep easier at night knowing that he is not at the behest and the beholden of the evil empire. That's exactly what he'll do. Samoa Joe, now that he is free from the clutches of the evil McMahon empire, he will sleep almost as good as if he was stretched out at night on a Helix mattress. Not quite, but almost as good. Because we all know that if you want to feel like you're laying down in a cloud, if you want to feel like you're curled up in the warm belly of a soft puppy, then you need a Helix mattress. And I told you, that's what Stacy is recuperating and recoverizing right now on from her surgery. That's what you need to go to whenever you're just tired, sore, broke down, and disgusted. Go to a Helix Sleep mattress, folks. You go to helixsleep.com/JCE, by the way. You take a 2-minute sleep quiz. What positions do you like to sleep in? Do you run hot, cold, whatever? And they match you to the customized mattress they offer that gives you the best sleep of your life. It's got a 10-year warranty, and you get to try it out for 100 nights risk-free. If you don't love it, what in the world would be the matter with you? They'll even pick it up for you. So you go there, you take the quiz, you tell them how you sleep, what you like, then you order the mattress. It comes to your door in a box that even a normal human can move around, because once you unbox it, poof, it inflates to life with the grace of a flying gazelle. And it's a wonderful show to watch it just pop right up there, too. I haven't seen anything get bigger like that at that rate in a long time, folks. But anyway, helixsleep.com/JCE, because they're offering up to $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners at helixsleep.com/JCE. Don't sleep on a saggy old mattress or sleep beside a saggy old... No, you get you a brand new mattress from Helix. It won't look like the mattress that Norman Bates' mother slept on with those big ruts in it. She never rolled over in bed. Did you notice that?
I did not notice that, no. She was dead already, Jim.
You sound like Bones now. She's dead, Jim.